Hello 8th graders, this video is all about the concept of classifying matter. This video covers ELR 3.1, in which we are going to talk about pure substances. The next video is going to cover the other half of everything that there is, and we'll talk about mixtures. And after these two videos for 3.1 and 3.2, you will be able to classify everything that is matter in the universe, which is a pretty cool skill to have as a chemist. Your objective during this video is to recognize that compounds and elements are pure substances, and to be able to distinguish the two using the terms that are on your screen. So there are some vocab words. And as I said, after these videos, you will be able to classify any substance in the universe. Your exit ticket, if you are in class right now, is going to be what you see on your screen. Your job is going to be to classify the thing that you see, that the blue and red thing that's on your screen. Those are things that we use in chemistry to diagram what matter looks like on the smallest scale possible. So let's start off with atoms and elements. On your paper, there's a spot for you to describe the difference, and I found an example. So these are pictures of ball bearings. They use them in all sorts of things, but they're just little steel marbles. And the one on the left is representative of an atom, and the one on the right is representative of element. So the difference between those two vocab words is that when you say the word atom, it means just one. It is a singular word. If you have a whole bunch of the same type of atoms, so like for example, a whole bunch of sodiums or a whole bunch of hydrogens or a whole bunch of nitrogens, whatever, it doesn't matter, that we would call element. Element just means many of the same type. Pause this video if you need to add those to your notes still. So to give you a better idea, on my wall, or hanging next to my wall, is a periodic table that looks like the one on your screen. These are all of the known elements on this planet, and in the universe actually. There might be more, but we're not aware of them yet. These are all the ones that have been discovered though. So everything that's on this table makes up everything that is stuff. You, me, the air we're breathing, the table you're sitting at, the building that we're in, all of that stuff is made of elements. Well, let's take sodium, for example. If you had just one sodium, just a singular piece of sodium on its smallest scale, we would call that an atom. If you had a whole bunch of them, though, this is what sodium metal looks like. If you had like a big bar of it, you would have trillions and trillions of sodiums all packed together. We would call that element, as long as they're all made of the same thing, all sodium atoms. So now let's talk molecule and compound. There are some rules that some matter would have to follow in order to be called a molecule or to be called a compound. And these two words have a lot in common. In fact, they have more in common than they have in different. So it's really important to be able to pick out that little difference so that we're using the words correctly. On your paper, there are spots for you to write down the rules, and I need you to add them to your paper now. So for molecules, in order to be a molecule, the thing has to be made of more than one atom. And those atoms, they have to be bonded together, stuck together. So the pictures that I have on the screen to the right, there are some different kinds of things set up. Your job is to pick out the ones that are molecules versus compounds in just a second. So let's talk about compounds next. In order to be a compound, it actually has to follow the same two rules as a molecule. It has to be more than one atom. Those atoms have to be bonded together. But in order to be a compound, it has to go a little bit further. You also have to be at least two different types of atoms in order to be called a compound. So if you take a look at the pictures on your right, please take a second, pause the video, and see if you can pick out which ones are molecules and which ones are compounds, and maybe even which ones are neither. Pause the video now. All right, so let's take a look. The first picture, we've got a red surrounded by yellows. This actually follows the rules for molecules, more than one, and they're bonded to each other. So this is a picture of molecules. Let's check to see if it's a compound. If it's a molecule, that means that it follows the first two rules of being a compound, but we have to see if it has at least two different types. Since it has reds and yellows, it does. It has two different types. So this first picture is a compound. The one with the green circles, though, is not a compound. It is a molecule because it's got more than one atom, they're bonded together, but it's not a compound because there's only greens, that's it. The bottom left picture is both a molecule and a compound, and the last one is neither. It does have more than one atom, but because they're not bonded together, they're just a bunch of single ones floating around, that would not be a molecule or a compound. So think of it like this. If you have a compound, like these first two pictures on the left, then it is also a molecule. All compounds are also molecules. But because molecule has a little bit more relaxed of rules, they have one less rule, sometimes, like this green picture, you can have something that's a molecule but not a compound. But all compounds are also molecules. So now on your paper, I need you to draw an example. You can pick ones off my screen if you'd like, but I need you to have a reminder to yourself of what a molecule is and what a compound is. But also, more importantly, maybe, is a non-example. I want you to try to draw something that does not fit the rules to help you to remember the difference. Pause this video and fill out the rest of the table on your notes. So if you're still struggling to come up with some ideas for what to draw, I plucked those examples from my last slide, and I've got some examples of molecules, more than one, bonded together. A non-example would be this guy. This would actually be an element because they're all the same and there's a bunch of them, so that was actually element. And the reason why it's not a molecule is they're not bonded. Over on the compound side, I chose the same little orange and yellow thing, and some non-examples also. And the non-examples must have more than one type. That's why they are not examples. If you need to steal mine, pause the video and do that. So in just a second, you're going to get some practice classifying these things using the rules for element, atom, molecule, and compound. But everything that we've just talked about, all those four things, those are all what we call pure substances. And the reason why we call them pure is because if you had a container that had any of those words, atom, element, molecule, or compound, and if you were to try to reach in there and blindly just pluck out one little piece of it, you would always get the same thing. That's what makes something pure. So take this bottom picture as an example. If I had something that had a whole bunch of stuff in there, it looks like I've got some element, I've got some molecules, I've got some compounds, I might get something different each time I reach in there. That's what makes it not pure. We're going to classify those a little bit better on the next video. So for the practice, here's what I need you to do. On the next part of your paper, you have a spot which says A through I, and I need you to pause this video, and I need you to classify this. If it's pure, I need you to choose whether it's pure atom, element, molecule, or compound. And if it's not pure, if it's a mixture, I want you to say what it is a mixture of, because all mixtures are really just a bunch of pure things that got put together. So you might say like it's a mixture of compounds and atoms, or compound and element, or whatever. Pause this video and give those a shot. If you are still watching, you are ready to check your answers because you have tried these all on your own. So here are all the answers for each one. If you need to pause this video and ask me live for help because I'm wandering around the room, that's why I am there. If any of these don't match up with what you thought, this is your time to ask some questions. Pause the video and check your answers. Before you go in and do the mini lab that you're about to attempt, I want you to have one last practice. At the bottom of your paper, there are 4 squares for you to fill in. In the top left one, I want you to make a picture of an element and a compound. We're going to say that these 3 shapes represent different types of atom. So triangle atom, square atom, and circle atom. If you stick them next to each other so that they're touching, we'll call that a bond. The next box over, I want you to make something that is an element and a molecule. Bottom left box, something that is a molecule but not a compound. And the last box, something that is an element but not a molecule. Pause this video and attempt those now. If you are still watching, you have finished the notes and you are ready to go to what I am calling the nuts and bolts lab. In the classroom, there is a nuts and bolts handout in the front of the room or on the side wall next to the door. I need you to get one of those, and then you're going to visit the Ziplocs that are sitting on the side counter that have this hardware in it, so nuts, bolts, and washers. And your job is to pretend like the nuts, the bolts, and the washers, those are all different types of atom. And they're put into the baggies in such a way where some of them are connected to each other, some of them aren't. But your job is to look at them and decide what kind of thing is in the bag. So if you're going to say it's pure, remember these are the only things in the entire universe that are considered pure. Pure compound, pure molecule, pure element, or just a single atom would be considered pure. Because if you reach in there and you grab just one thing, you're always going to get the same thing. If you think that it's a mixture, your job would be to say what that mixture is. So for example, this is the contents, what's on your screen. This is what's in bag number 1. We'll do this one together. Notice that it has the little hex things and they're not connected to each other. Since there's more than one of them, that's element. This other thing, they're screwed together, so that means bonded. And it looks like there's a washer and a bolt and a nut all together in one thing, and those two are the same as each other. So they're both compound. So in this bag, we have a mixture of element, that's the little hex nuts, and we have compound, that's the other thing. Now go to the other stations and try the rest yourself. Check the answers on the front counter when you're ready.